is Zoe Jorden. I am a personal trainer. I'm also a graduating student naturopath. And I have a whole heap of life experience when it comes to stress. So I thought that today I would talk to you about how stress might be presenting in your life, but also how you can manage it, and how you can give yourself the tools and resources that you need to have a bit more of a fulfilled life, to carry yourself forward and get the life that you're actually wanting. So to kind of start it off, when I know it looks like I'm in a big, beautiful paradise right now, and I'll tell you right now, this is not my normal home. This is my sister's home, and I'm lucky enough to be on holiday at her place right now. This is not my normal life. My normal life is stress zone. So what I've done over the years is to kind of go on a bit of a journey of self-discovery on figuring out what it is within me that needs to have a stressful life, and how I can actually optimize my life and myself so that that's not going to be impacting me quite as much. So I guess the basics of what a lot of people kind of don't realize is really coming into factor is that as humans, we are still governed by the rise and fall of the sun. It's called the circadian rhythm. And every animal is governed by this, whether they're nocturnal or not. And what happens is we have different hormones inside the brain that are released at different times, dependent on the rise and fall of the sun. So these hormones in the morning, it's cortisol. So cortisol is our stress hormone. That wakes us up and gets us ready, just like an alarm. That increases your cortisol to wake you up. But naturally, we also secrete that regardless of our alarm clock. And then as we can continue through the day, our cortisol kind of ebbs and flows depending on our energy demands and how high the sun is. So the cortisol will be highest when the sun is at its peak. And then as we get towards the end of the day and the sun starts to go red and starts to wind down, that's our GABA being secreted. So our GABA is our rest and digest and get prepared for sleep hormone. And then to keep us asleep at night, we have melatonin. So we have cortisol, GABA, and melatonin, and they govern our kind of our natural energy. If everything else is working fine and dandy, if we're eating the right food, if our life is stress-free and we're just going about a normal, happy day, those three hormones will help to keep us in sync. So with that, these hormones can also go completely out of whack. So they're secreted in the hypothalamus and the pituitary glands in your brain, and they are connected to every single thing in the body. And with that, if your hormones, if your cortisol, your GABA, and your melatonin decide to go out of whack, which is generally because the cortisol has increased a little bit too high, I'm pretty sure most people know that they get a little bit more stressed when they get more relaxy, then everything else in our body is going to start going kind of haywire. So our hormones are also created in the hypothalamus and pituitary gland, and they will go out of whack. So like your testosterones, your estrogens, they will all kind of go out of sync. Also, we have this big vein, or not vein, big nerve that goes down through our digestive system called the vagus nerve. And that is the nerve that increases and decreases energy to our digestive system. Of course, we need energy and blood flow that will increase that as well. We need that to be able to digest food. So if we're eating a lot and that vagus nerve isn't working properly, then we're not going to be digesting our food. And the vagus nerve gets impacted when cortisol increases. That happens because what your brain is kind of thinking, like your subconscious brain is reacting to everything that you're doing. So if you have a high stress job, if you have a high stress family life, or your home life is quite stressful, then what your subconscious brain is thinking is that you're constantly being chased by a bear, and that it constantly needs to increase blood flow to your brain and to your arms and your legs so you can run away from that bear. But your conscious brain knows that there is no bear. It's just that your boss has asked you for the deadline for the 9th time, even though you know that they actually don't need it at that time. So what happens over time is that if we look at it in two different ways, we do actually want some cortisol. Like I said, it wakes us up in the morning, and cortisol in the morning and in short amounts, so in acute bursts of cortisol or stress, that is actually anti-inflammatory. So it helps us to clear out all the stuff in our body, helps us to relax, it helps us to just get everything functioning normally, because like I said, wakes us up. We do actually need it to get the job done some of the time. But if we have a lot of cortisol over a long period of time, then that becomes pro-inflammatory. So that means that our cells and our joints and our digestive system and everything in our body starts to be degraded, and it starts to age us a lot quicker as well. So even if you're not feeling it now, even if it's only been like 10, 20, 30 years that you've been stressed, you will be actually a lot more sluggish, and everything will feel a little bit rusty through your body because your cells are actually being impacted by the cortisol bouncing around and causing cellular damage. So with that, that's going to be storing a lot more fat through your body as well. And that's going to be causing a lot more or progression into other diseases like metabolic syndrome and diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancers, you name it. A lot of it comes from stress. So how do we actually manage all those stress levels, and so that we can keep it like moderate, and we can increase our GABA and our melatonin to make sure that we're resting and getting enough sleep to repair ourselves at night so that we can wake up refreshed and not be too impacted through the day? A lot of it comes back to awareness. So like I was saying at the start, that I've lived a very stressful life, and I've had to kind of tap into myself to see like, okay, what is it that is actually making me need to have a stressful life, and how can I overcome that so I can optimize myself and actually get the life that I want? So a lot of people kind of run through their lives just a little bit blind, where they're going through the motions day after day, everything's ticking along, and they're not really opening up themselves to what is actually happening in them and around them to be able to create that change. I've kind of utilized this year with the global pandemic to use that as a really big foundation for me to start changing my life in a very big way. But I was aware of this before then. So what I became aware of is that as a personal trainer, I was working 14-hour days, and 14 hours a day in a gym. It sounds a little bit intense. It was a lot of fun though, because I'm in a high vibrational environment. Everyone is around me just working towards the same goal. Everyone is there to work on themselves. Everyone is happy within themselves because they're there to just feel better and get the physique or the strength gains or things like that they're after. So it was very easy for me to be in that environment for 14 hours a day. At the end of the day, I definitely didn't have any GABA there, so I wasn't getting any of that rest and digest and set up for bed. It would just be get home, eat food, and absolutely crash. So that is a sign of no GABA being present, is that you just go and crash. And aside from that, the reason why it was so easy for me to work 14 hours a day is because the environment itself was set up to stimulate. So you have music going on all the time. You have these lights above you that are generally fluorescent lights. And like I was saying before, just that high vibration environment. So similarly, when I used to work in an office, it's very similar. So it might not be that there's music pumping through the speakers, and there might not be people lifting heavy things and putting them down, but everyone is busy, everyone is doing a task, everyone is on demand. And you also have a fake sunlight in the middle of the day in front of your face and over your head with fluorescent lights and computer screens. So with those lights, like I was saying before with the sunshine, your cortisol is going to be at its peak. So throughout the day, if you're working for 8 hours in front of the computer screen, that might be sounding like it's kind of okay, but it is not allowing for that dip off in the afternoon of the cortisol. And especially if you're staying at work for past 5 o'clock as well. Generally, of course, like if you're thinking about the sun starting to set around 3 o'clock, you definitely want to be getting off of the computer screen. So that doesn't sound doable for most people in their lives. But that is a good indication that, like, if you're noticing that you're generally a little bit more stressed, it could be because that extended time in front of a blue light or an unnatural light source. And similarly with the fluorescent lights above, that even if you don't have a computer screen in front of you, but you are in an environment with fluorescent lights, exactly the same thing is going to be happening. So one really simple way to overcome that, which I'm not going to say that just change your entire career, because you might really like your career. red filter lights or blue light filter glasses. So you can do several things. You can put a filter on your screen so that you're knocking out that blue light, or you can actually buy glasses that are called blue light filter glasses. Some of them just look like normal glasses. They just have a bit of a tint on the lens. They are just a little bit effective. You'll notice that your eyes don't feel quite as strained. Or you can go to more of the extreme end and get the ones that actually have a real red look to the lens. And those ones will definitely help you. So you could kind of use those ones throughout the day, that you have just the blue light filter ones that look normal earlier in the day, and then as your day progresses, start putting on like a yellow or an orange or a red filter on your lens. And Barclay Eyewear have those glasses that you get one set and they all have different lenses in the same pack. So it's not like you have to buy 20 different types of glasses. So that's one way to start looking after that cortisol levels, but it's also looking within yourself to be like, okay, so I've set up this life. This life is for you, and you have chosen the career that you're in at the moment, whether it feels like you have or you haven't. It is your opportunity to do what it is that you would like with your life right now. And I know that some people are in a better situation to change that than others. But how can you moderate your life to your best advantage to be able to look after yourself? For some people, it might be that there is something else that they would like to do that they just haven't been able to jump into the opportunity of. So start looking into that outside of your normal day. Or it could just be needing to start doing things like journaling. I find that journaling is really helpful. I avoided it for a very long period of time, I'd say years, because I thought it was a little bit woo-woo. But it actually really does help to get the thoughts out of your brain and just put them out there without it affecting you anymore. So whether that's one word of just saying like, today was shit, or if it's just writing down of like, just getting out and tapping into within yourself of what it is that has come up for you in that day. So if you're noticing that you're being triggered by something, why is it that it was triggering you? Is it triggering a memory of something that occurred to you previously? Is that a link that's happened to you quite frequently through your life? And then being able to notice those cycles and being able to adapt to that. There's a lot of other things that we can do for health as well to be able to make sure that we are keeping our body in check as well. So if we're looking after the mental side, but we aren't looking after the physical side, there's still going to be a little bit of sluggishness happening. So like I was saying before, with the eyewear, that's one way of doing it a little bit. But another way that we can really start looking after our bodies is making sure that we are setting a routine for ourselves. So if we want to have a cruisy weekend, that's absolutely fine. But creating a little bit more structure through the week will actually help your body to have the best advantage possible, because your body will know, okay, we need to do this at this time. Yeah, okay, we can set up the environment for that. So our body loves routine, and you will thrive on it if you are able to hold yourself to it by just creating those healthy boundaries for yourself. Another thing is, of course, exercise. There's different types of exercise, and I've just got a little cat that's wandering around me, just so you know. But there's different types of exercise that do different things with your body. So what we're doing, like I mentioned at the start, is we're wanting to get little sharp peaks of cortisol, not long-term cortisol, through our exercise as well. So how we do that is that we are doing things like high intensity interval training. That is obviously quite intense. It might be a little bit too much for a lot of people to take on at the start, but weight training is absolutely phenomenal for increasing short sparks of cortisol as well, because your cortisol is only rising up while you're lifting those weights. So as soon as you pop them down, as soon as you get back into your rest in between your sets, your cortisol is dipping off again. And then you lift it up, you're increasing that cortisol, and then it dips off again. So weight training is actually a really beautiful way to teach your body and to teach your hypothalamus, all that brain chemistry, how to manage your cortisol levels. So training 3 to 4 times a week is a good way to maintain your physique. If you're wanting to have any goals with your physique, then you're wanting to train probably around 5 times a week, maybe 6, but you definitely need to make sure that you have rest days as well, because if you don't have rest days, that's that cortisol going up again. So with a lot of people that go, okay, well, if I need to exercise, then I need to go on a 2-hour run. that's where we're getting back into increasing that cortisol for a long period of time. That I actually only recommend it to my clients if they find it quite meditative, if it's just that they're going into that motion and that's a meditative state for them to be in, that is okay for them to do. If it is that their heart rate is getting a little bit flustered and that they are just pushing themselves because they feel like they need to lose weight, or that they feel like they need to be able to run 10 kilometers or something like that, then that is not a restful place, and that is a very high increase of cortisol for a long duration of time. And you can even just do a quick Google to have a look at the difference with a marathon runner versus a sprinter. You can really see the difference in even just their skin tone. Where a marathon runner, the skin will generally be quite papery, and the sprinter will have quite supple skin and supple muscles, and that's that difference in that cortisol levels. So looking at what it is that you're wanting to achieve for your body as well. If you like the look of a marathon runner, then that's completely up to you. If you want to be able to get like I was saying before, get better management of your stress and being able to hold onto the integrity of your cellular health, then we're wanting to go for more of the HIIT style training, like what a sprinter would do. Diet as well obviously plays into this. So when we're eating different foods, they increase different levels of like glucose, they increase different levels of digestive enzymes, they require different energy needs to eat. So if we're stressed, like I said at the start with that vagus nerve, if we're stressed all the time, we're not going to have an appetite. And unfortunately, the past couple of years, there's a term called intermittent fasting that's become very popular. And I'm not against intermittent fasting, but a lot of people that go into it kind of casually, they just go like, oh yeah, no, I'm just intermittent fasting at the moment, as part of a new part of their regime, where they haven't looked into how to actually structure the rest of their meals throughout that day, so that it actually does become quite a good technique to use. What's happening is that, of course, they're not going to be able to eat because their vagus nerve is not working and they've got too much cortisol running through their body through the day. They wake up in the morning, the cortisol is kicked higher because, of course, the cortisol kicks up to wake them up. The vagus nerve is completely downregulated and they are not going to have the environment in their gut to even want to eat. There's a lot of research that's being done into the link with the gut and the brain and how those two interplay. So there's a lot of factors that come into that, and part of it is that vagus nerve. And what we're looking at is there enough digestive enzymes that are being secreted in order to chemically break down the food? And if there is there enough motility action happening in your digestive system to mechanically break down your food as well? Because we need the two to be able to break down food effectively so we can absorb it, rather than it just sitting in our gut and fermenting and causing more bloating and digestive disease, and causing more toxic overflow into your bloodstream as well. So as soon as we start waking up and we're starting to think like, oh yeah, food is probably a thing that I need in my life, our vagus nerve in our digestive system will be sending a link to our brain of going, no, I don't want that, I don't have the energy for that, or yeah, I'm actually really hungry right now. So there's two little hormones that are that govern that as well. They're called ghrelin and leptin. Good way to think of which one is which is ghrelin is when your stomach goes grrr, so it is hungry. Leptin is when you are nice and full. So if your cortisol is high, your leptin is going to be secreted a lot more. And if you're generally in a good place and you generally eat quite a balanced diet, then your ghrelin and your leptin will be in a good balance, and they'll be able to really successfully tell you when to eat and when you don't need to eat and all that kind of stuff. So if you're waking up in the morning and you are not hungry first thing, that's a good indication that your cortisol levels are a little bit high. But we can actually mediate that by having things like fermented foods, bitter foods especially, that help to stimulate salivary amylase and help to stimulate that vagus nerve. So bitter foods are absolutely easy for that. Or you can have sour things. You can have like lemon juice, apple cider vinegar, or you can have some rocket or some whitlock or something like that. There's also herbs that we can use to increase your digestive capacity. But there's so many things that you can buy from the supermarket. Dandelion root tea is a great one as well. And they will all help to start stimulating your digestive capacity so that you can break down the food that you're eating just that little bit easier. And this is a little dog that likes to eat everything, don't you? You definitely don't have any leptin. This dog absolutely loves to eat constantly. As soon as anyone looks like they're eating, he absolutely just is your best friend. So yeah, so helping to mediate what it is that you're needing to eat throughout the day. If you are the type of person that is a very big, busy life and you're too busy to eat, that's going to be increasing your cortisol again, because your cortisol needs to be increasing some form of energy in your body. So if you don't have enough food going in and out of your body to be able to give you good stabilized blood sugar levels, your cortisol is going to start going, okay, well, we need to get energy from somewhere. We're going to create it by what's called a process of gluconeogenesis, where it creates a new glucose molecule out of proteins or fats. And if it is that you're just going about a normal busy day, it's most likely going to be using your proteins before it uses your fats. And your proteins are generally in your arms and legs. So any goals that you've been hoping for with your gym life, with anything like that, if you're not eating enough and you're not eating frequently enough, which is generally around the 3-hour mark, 2 to 4 hours is like a good window, but 3 hours is kind of your little sweet spot. But eating frequently, so every 3 hours, not big meals, just a good healthy portion of meal, then you're going to be stabilizing your blood sugar levels, and that means that you're also going to be weaning away from utilizing your own muscle stores in order to keep your energy going. But aside from that, you can also see how your cortisol levels going with how everything else is happening with your digestive system. So are you pooping frequently enough? If it's that you feel a little bit more constipated, or you feel like you kind of go towards diarrhea a little bit more frequently, then that's a sign that you could be getting inflammation in your gut from there not being enough motility, blood flow, or it could be that your gut bacteria has started to go out of whack, which can happen if we're not eating the right foods. So eating a clean, balanced diet is the best way to do that. Having some magnesium to help bring in some blood flow and to help your digestive system, but your intestines to get their energy back, will help you to get restful and digested. So what I've covered today is a whole heap. And I didn't cap off as well of why I needed to have a stressful life. So for me, there goes the dog. So, okay, apparently that's my little warning alarm that the dog is starting to bark. So for me, anyway, what I realized is that I just really love the job that I'm doing, and I needed to create more healthy boundaries for myself so that I'm not overrunning myself, and so that I can actually work at a better capacity for my clients and actually have that life that I'm after. Because if I'm not looking after myself, the people that I love around me are not benefiting as much as they can be from my health and from just me in general, because it will be affecting my moods and all that kind of stuff too. So being at a more restful state means that I can actually give more to the people that I want to give to. But yes, thank you so much for having me today. I have absolutely enjoyed talking to you about all things stress and lifestyle, and I'll chat to you soon.